Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm sharing another week of breakfasts, and so here's what I had to eat every day over a week recently. For Monday's breakfast I made some hummus, avocado and sauerkraut toast. For this I placed a piece of whole wheat seeded bread into the toasted toast, and once that was done I placed it on a plate. I then spread on a good thick layer of hummus. I then placed on some sauerkraut. This was a red cabbage sauerkraut. It's so good. I'd also sliced up half an avocado in its shell and peeled off the shell. So then I placed the sliced half on top of the toast and just separated it slightly. I also then sprinkled over some hemp seeds and added some fresh coriander on the top. I had a matcha latte with this too. I went for the caramel matcha by the Matcha Reserve, who have kindly sponsored today's video. I first fill up my cup with some Oatly barista milk and just pour it into a pan to gently boil it. I then roughly take around 2 scoops of the matcha in my matcha bowl with a splash of warm water, then whisk it back and forth with my matcha whisk to make a smooth paste. I then add that into my cup and then I froth the milk in the pan using a milk frother and pour it into the cup with the matcha and just give it a stir. You know I love the vanilla matcha from the Matcha Reserve, but the caramel is amazing too. I love it with a savoury breakfast. This one obviously has a hint of caramel flavour to it, which is lovely, but it just sweetens the matcha slightly as well. And once again, the Matcha Reserve have kindly offered to donate 10% of any sales from this video to Mino Valley Farm Animal Sanctuary, which was my cause of choice. We've already raised so much for Mino Valley Farm from the previous video, so thank you all so much. Mino Valley Farm Animal Sanctuary is run by Abigail and Mike in northern Spain and is a safe haven for rescued farm animals. And as a non-profit organisation, the sanctuary survival is dependent on donations. You can make a one-off donation or become a monthly donor, and you can also sponsor animals such as goats, pigs and lambs in their care. I know that they're so passionate about what they do. The work they do is incredible, and any donations are hugely appreciated. So again, a big thank you to the Matcha Reserve for offering to donate 10% of any sales made from the link in the description box below this video. The toast I'd made to have with the matcha was so good. Hummus, avocado and sauerkraut are all such a good combination. They're like 3 of my favourite things together on toast. As I said, the sauerkraut I used is a red cabbage sauerkraut, but regular white cabbage sauerkraut works great too. For Tuesday's breakfast I made some baked banana-oat clusters. For this I preheated the oven to 180 degrees Celsius. Next I broke up an overripe banana into a bowl, then mashed it up using a potato masher. I then added in 1 cup of porridge oats, 3 tablespoons of coconut honey alternative, and a pinch of salt. I then just mixed that all through together really well. I brushed a baking dish with some coconut oil, then added in the banana oat mixture and using the spatula just broke it up a little bit to make it form the little clusters. I then placed that in the oven to bake for around 15 minutes. And I gave it a bit of a shuffle halfway through just so that it didn't catch. I then removed it from the oven after 15 minutes and left it to cool slightly. I put some almond milk yogurt into a bowl, then I added on the banana oat clusters, then some berries. I'd slice up some strawberries, so I added those in with some raspberries and blueberries too. I know I shared a similar recipe like this recently done by toasting the clusters in a pan, but this is how I bake them, and I've just really been enjoying having this for breakfast, and so many of you have already tried the recipe and loved it, so thank you for your feedback. It's a really easy and fairly cheap recipe. I love the warm banana, and instead of like a crunchier granola, these clusters are slightly more soft and chewy. They're really good. Then on Wednesday, I made this breakfast scramble. I first halved a few baby butter mushrooms, then I added those to a medium pan on a medium heat with a little oil. I then cooked them off until they started to go slightly brown. Next, I roughly chopped up a tomato and I added that to the pan along with a small handful of fresh spinach. and a small handful of fresh kale, and I just allowed the tomatoes to cook slightly and for the spinach and the kale to wilt and soften. After a few minutes, I then added in around half a teaspoon of onion granules, a pinch of chili flakes, and seasoned it with some salt and black pepper. I then turned off the heat, cut up the other half of the avocado in its shell left over from Monday's breakfast, and added that to the pan. I then just turned it over gently a couple of times. I placed a piece of whole wheat seeded bread on a plate. Then I just spooned on the breakfast scramble and finished with a good spoonful of hummus on the side. I had another matcha latte with this. I used the vanilla matcha from the Matcha Reserve. Again, I take around 2 scoops with a splash of warm water and whisk that back and forth in a matcha bowl. Then pour that into a cup before adding in some warm frothed oat milk, and then just give it a really good stir. This is such a great breakfast to use things up that might be hanging around in your fridge like I did. You could also throw in some potato, some peppers, onions, even some asparagus. Those would all work great too. And even some chickpeas would be really good in this. And I love a matcha with a savoury breakfast. The vanilla one went really nicely with this. There's so many flavours and textures, and it is so easy. It's literally just a case of throwing everything together in a pan and cooking it. For breakfast on Thursday, I made some hummus and kale toast. For this, I placed a small handful of kale with the stems removed in a bowl. I then added in a drizzle of oil. I used this Weed and Wonderful Scottish seaweed infused rapeseed oil, which is really great on salads and things like this. The juice of 1/4 of a lemon, a good pinch of nutritional yeast, a sprinkle of onion granules, and some salt and black pepper. Then using my hands, I just massaged everything into the kale. I then placed a piece of whole wheat seeded bread in the toaster to toast, and once it was done, I placed it on a plate, then spread on a good thick layer of hummus, added the kale on top, then sprinkled on some hemp seeds and also some dried chili flakes. Another savoury breakfast idea for you. It's so quick and easy and really delicious. Instead of the kale, you could also always do this with some fresh spinach, and instead of the hummus, some smashed avocado would be great too. You could also massage in some balsamic vinegar and fresh garlic into the kale. Those would be really lovely with the lemon juice and the chili. There's lots of different ways that you could recreate this. And finally, for Friday's breakfast, I made this kind of yoghurt snack pot. I just took an almond milk yoghurt from Nush. This was the caramel hibiscus flavour, which is my favourite. I then trimmed and sliced a couple of strawberries, and don't worry, the tops don't go to waste. The bunnies always get those, they absolutely love them. I placed the sliced strawberries in the yoghurt pot. Then I grabbed a snack bar. This one is by Squirrel Sisters, and it's the raspberry ripple flavour. It's delicious, and I thought it would go really nicely with the other flavours. These are just 2 little energy snack bar sticks, so I placed those in the pot too. You could even crumble these in. I also added on some chopped pecans, and then I finished by drizzling some almond butter all over the top. This is how I like to take my yogurts to the next level. Just load them up. It's great as a snack, but for a pretty simple breakfast, it's also really great. You can add in any fruit you like. You could instead use some chopped almonds or chopped walnuts, and hazelnut chocolate spread as a drizzle instead of the nut butter. There are so many different ways you could recreate this. And that's it for another week of breakfast. I hope you enjoyed this video. As always, all of the recipes are written up in the description box below for you. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!